There's a lot of traps in this world, isn't there? There's a lot of traps that we fall into. And one of the traps that we fall into, it seems to me, is that we just spend money left, right and centre on pretty much stuff that we don't really need and we didn't really want. And I'm talking about consumerism. I was talking to John Hamer about this in his book, The Falsification of History. He talks about it, and it really rang something with me because it struck me for a long time that we've been persuaded, if you like, by advertisers, by big corporations, to part with our money. It's a weird world in which we have to go to work in order to earn some money so that we can have the basics in life. And there are a lot of people who have made an agreement, I suppose, with themselves that they'll go to a job that they don't really like. They don't really care about whatever it is the job is doing, the product perhaps, or the end result of the service. They're just facilitating. They're exchanging their time for an amount of money. And they do that, and perhaps they have to commute a certain amount of time to get to this job in order to do it, so that they can come back with a wage packet, which then can spend the money on the various bills. One of which, of course, is bills that are being pushed upon us that actually seem to be not right. Council tax being one of those, but let's leave that aside for the moment. Obviously, food is the most important thing that we ought to be spending our money on, and yet it's funny how food in and of itself is deemed to be the least important thing. We go to the supermarket and we assume that there'll always be food on the shelves, and we've come to a point where we believe that it's our right to have the cheapest possible food anywhere and available at all times, 24/7 in some cases, or that fast food restaurants should be able to serve up something. Little do we think, really, and we even laugh at it. This is the crazy thing. Well, we know it's not very good, that it has little nutritional value, but that's still what people choose. Not even managing to sort of connect the feeling of not feeling great, not being very well, getting ill, having various complaints with perhaps the food that they're eating, lack of energy and so on. And yet we'll laugh at that and we'll go ahead anyway and buy non-nutritional food. And we're trapped into believing, if we're not even aware that this food is non-nutritional, we're trapped into thinking that the supermarkets have got such an array of wonderful things in their boxes that are colourful, and that it is actually going to fulfil our needs and our children's needs. And yet when you look at the list of ingredients and you see all the strange sounding chemicals in there, it still doesn't ring true that this is not actually food, that these processes have got things that will make the food look more colourful and more appetising, and the taste of it has been enhanced with chemicals which make it more flavoursome, because our palates have been so changed over the years that we now no longer know what real food tastes like. And if we were to taste the nuances of beautiful food, we wouldn't really get it anymore, because we're so used to this over-salted, over-spiced food that you get in boxes, which probably isn't really fit for any animal, but we'll lap it up anyway. We're tricked into doing that because advertisements continually tell us that we ought to buy the next latest thing. We need to continually upgrade. Cars are one of those things, aren't they? We've always got to upgrade our car. Or phones, mobile phones. Computers, it used to be, laptops and tablets and all this sort of nonsense stuff. Doorbells that will do things and tell you who's at the door, so you don't even have to get up out of the chair or look out of the window. Fridges these days, with the internet of all things coming along, which you can then, it will automatically reorder stuff if you've taken your milk out, or give you a list of things that you need to update. This is somewhat worrying because, of course, all of this trap is there to surveil you and everybody who passes your house with these ringing doorbell things, these cameras in the doorbells, all this modern technology we're told that we desperately need. And it does seem absurd that people go to these jobs that they're not really interested in, that they spend hours under artificial lights, not really enjoying it, perhaps not even enjoying the company of the people that they're working with, in an industry they don't really care much about, only to earn that money to take home so that they can effectively be tricked into giving it back to the corporations in the form of all these different weird and wonderful products, which actually are not really being of any benefit to them. Consumerism. This is what it is. Fashion is another one of those things that we're being led to believe we ought to be fashionable and wear the latest clothes, and you've got to look a certain way. People have said to me very kindly, said, Richard, you always look quite dapper if I've got a waistcoat on, or I'm looking reasonably tidy and all of that. Most of my stuff I either get from, say, a vintage, second-hand vintage shop or a charity shop, and occasionally I will buy the odd new thing, and then I wear them to death. Same with in the past when I've bought cars. Now I've got a van, I've no mind of changing that. But some people really have to change. A friend of a friend told me about their neighbour who every season changed their kitchen. My kitchen doesn't even have ordinary cupboards and all those sort of things. I've kept mine deliberately unique, old-fashioned and simple. I don't adhere to this consumerism, and I'm incredibly surprised at Christmas time when you see people going around filling up their baskets with so much food, just tipping over the top, and then various presents for the children because they've been told they've got to buy these very expensive plastic bits of nonsense for their kids, and if they don't, there's peer pressure and the kids are moaning because everybody now is entitled to have all this stuff. And they get themselves into huge amounts of debt with the corporations, and if you don't pay, of course they'll come down. And so for the rest of the year you're paying off all these debts, and then Christmas rears its ugly head again and the consumerism starts one more time. How is it that we've got into this situation? Are we being trapped? Are we being lured into something that we don't really need? How many people actually get rid of all their television and Netflix and Amazon Prime? How many people out there really manage to pare back to the basics? How many people know how to survive or get through an evening without having to switch on the television when they come home from a dead-end job that they don't like, to have their energy sapped by programming television? It seems that that's still, people have been buying, I mean, it makes me laugh, huge, ever more bigger and bigger cinema-style television sets so that they can sit there and have their life taken away, sapped out of them, watching other people doing things and in having an enjoyable life, while they just sit on the sofa with a TV dinner heated up, radiated from a microwave with no nutritional value, only to spend that whole evening watching something and then going to bed to repeat that process. And this has been going on for years, and many commentators have mentioned this, and yet the mould doesn't seem to want to break. People are still happy to do these dead-end jobs, to work forever, and then just come home and let somebody else have a life and you just witness it. And we're seeing ever more people getting these screens, spending time on social media, talking to people, but not actually go out and meet them. In the old days, people used to go to the pub and have a game of darts or any other sort of the old pub games they used to do. The pub round the corner from me does a game called Toad in the Hole, and it's great fun. You can have a laugh doing it. You might have a few drinks and a few people and you chat to real people. You're gathering together. You're putting the world to rights. You're enjoying yourself and laughing. The world has changed since I was a lad, and it just seems to be ever more isolated and forcing us ever more to part with our money. And we're being tricked all the time in this consumer world to have things that actually we never really wanted, we don't actually need, and it's just another way of keeping our energy low. Now, if that's you, perhaps you're happy with that, and I'm not saying you're not, but some people, it looks to me, have got those lines on their face that tell me they're worried about where the next bill is coming from, and they don't know how to get out of that circle, that ever-decreasing circle of worry. I want a simpler life. I don't adhere to the consumerism. If I go to a shop, I know exactly what I want. I don't get enticed by all the other things. Buy one, put one back. Buy two, get three free. All these weird and wacky offers. But it is difficult because we've been trained by the advertising, by all of this. Turn the bloody stuff off. Pick up a book and read it. We can get out of these traps, but it does take a massive leap of faith. It takes a bit of energy to understand who we are and what we really want from life. And mostly it seems to me that what we want from life is pretty much the opposite of what we're being offered.